Big Law. Kirkland and Ellis is the biggest of Big Law, not in headcount, but certainly in money, which seems like that might be more important in the long term anyway. What is going on over at Kirkland?
So much. So very, very much. Two stories that we had actually are related in the sense that they're about laterals. We've talked on the show, obviously, about, moving between big law firms and what that looks like. And it looks like the lateral market for associates is really starting to heat up. This is the sort of market that is cyclical, different times, different markets. And what Kirkland has done is extended their associate referral program. So if you're currently a attorney at Kirkland and Ellis and you successfully recommend a candidate internally and they get hired, you're going to get a $50,000 check, which is delightful. And what's noteworthy is they have had this program at different points in the past, but the most recent iteration was only for litigation. Now it's for everyone, which really shows a market increase in the corporate market. 2023 was really plagued by all these stories and layoffs, including at Kirkland, because there was this sort of corporate slowdown, all these different sectors. M&A was at a real low and all this kind of stuff. And now I think it's a really good sign. And they're not the only firm that's kind of come out. And, Sherman, the recently merged firm, also it has a $50,000 referral bonus. So it's a good sign. Lots of positive things if you're looking to lateral.
Yeah, I guess let's break this one down before going to the other half of the story. So, yeah, all right. So I'm a little bit biased because I have worked as a consultant with a recruiting firm. I see what they do every day. I understand how it operates. And so I'm a little biased against this idea.
Sure.
It strikes me as though, I get it, it's probably a little cheaper, and not necessarily cheaper, but probably slightly cheaper to pay your existing associates referral fee rather than paying the recruiter. But it's close. I mean, unless you're hiring of counsel or something, it's probably going to work out to be about the same. But what are you doing here? You're limiting yourself to the recommendations of people you already have. And there is some cultural benefit to that. It's somebody who will get along, have at least one friend in the firm. And there is a value to that. That said, you're limited to their circles, as opposed to with the recruiters, they have catalogs of people. They have been going out and meeting folks and learning people with various backgrounds across various firms with various experiences, and they're able to recommend to the firm a good slate of candidates from across a series of experiences. That's always going to get you, in the end, a better candidate than just saying, hey, what's your cousin up to? Or something like that,
sure,
right?
But these are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, it seems like you can do both. And also, and also, like, there are other intangibles. Like, I'm pretty sure it's a great boost to morale and, like, loyalty if you're like, the company cares enough about my opinions that they're not only willing to pay me for them, but I get to pick my friend group. Like, there's some value in that way that you wouldn't get from a recruiter who's presumably doesn't really give a damn about who they're working with as long as they get slotted in.
So the problem is, this usually doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is very rare for somebody at a firm to say, I'm not looking, but then my friend called me and said, hey, let's go to Kirkland together. What will usually happen is it is somebody who is already on the market, usually somebody who already has a recruiter relationship, and this bonus is intended to shank that relationship and pay somebody inside so they can, get around having to pay the recruiter, usually. So, because I have definitely seen this over the years where people get into fee fights about whether or not, oh, my friend said they're going to get whatever. And it's a not great move as far as relationships with recruiting goes. It's also not a great move for the candidate in my mind, because the candidate themselves, what happens when you hit a snag in the negotiations to move over, right? Now your friend is getting in trouble if you're the one who says, well, I don't like this, I need XYZ. Now it's your friend who's like, what the hell's with your person? Whereas with a recruiter, it's somebody outside who can take that flack, who can push back, who can say things like, we actually need you to they're going to lose out on their bonus if they move. So you need to like prorate their bonus from what they would have gotten at the other. All of those negotiations, which can get very uncomfortable for the referrer, can now be an outsider as opposed to somebody inside.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
There's a real benefit to using professionals.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that it cannot be understated. And I think that's also a word to the wise. If you're in the lateral market and you're like, oh, well, I have a friend at Kirkland, I'll tell them to put my resume in versus using an outside firm, be aware that if you do have to engage in any level of negotiation, it's significantly better to have a professional on your side during that entire process. Also, if you decide that, oh, well, it's not actually Kirkland that's right for me, but such and such is right for me, whatever.
I'd only quibble with on your side because it's more technically an intermediary because the recruiter's kind of working for both folks.
I think that's
fair.
Yeah.
But an intermediary.
But they also can provide advice about
mediate.
whether or not something is it reasonable to make this request or that request, and that's information that your friend who works at Kirkland is not going to have. But I will say the other benefit to what Kirkland is doing, especially the fact that there have been so many news stories written about it, is it makes it clear that they're in the market. And maybe that means more people give their resumes to recruiters who put it in at Kirkland or something like that. But it makes a clear statement that they are looking to get bigger, that they feel very confident about that corporate market. And I think that's noteworthy in and of itself, even if they wind up never paying any of their associates any money for referrals.
Let's talk about how they are very concerned about headcount and the flip side of their concern about headcount.
I kind of think of it like carrot and stick, right? Mm-hmm. On one side, they're giving money in order to get, the people that they want in-house. And the other side, they're threatening money in order to keep people. Story came out that the partnerships policy at Kirkland is changing. It used to be that folks could, at Kirkland, when you're a partner and you're an equity partner, about 55% or up to 55% of your compensation is deferred into the following year. And it used to be when you left, you would get that money, which you would actually earned it the previous year. It was deferred compensation and the firm would pay it out to you. Now, and what is likely a very clear effort to keep people where they are, they're now saying that people will be forfeiting that deferred compensation if they leave.
So partners who leave will, all the billing, not all, but lots of the billing that they have already earned and done for the firm's saying, if you leave us, we will keep it and not let you have it.
Correct.
Have your share.
Which is, if you're thinking about being an equity partner at Kirkland, is certainly something you need to be aware of. There was kind of a little kind of footnote to that, the new policy, because they are shortening the amount of time at which they will pay back your capital contribution. Now, if you leave a firm, the firms give you back your capital contribution. And previously, it could be up to a year. That's not uncommon to take 12 months to get your capital contribution back. And now they're shortening that window to 3 months. So you will get the money quicker, which is very useful if you are trying to lateral and you need to put capital contributions in somewhere else. But it still means that there's potentially millions of dollars that you are leaving on the table that either you personally or the firm that you're lateraling to will be making up.
What gets me about this deal, and I haven't read all of the details of it, it wasn't my story, is this across the board with partners, or are they being selective? And my question for that is, if I'm
it's discretionary.
It is. Okay, because if I'm a partner at Kirkland and I get named the head of the SEC, right, I don't think Kirkland wants to piss me off. If I'm at Kirkland and I'm moving to be the general counsel at BlackRock or something, I don't think they want to piss me off. Mm-hmm. But if I'm moving to Latham, they're going to try and screw. Okay.
Yeah, it's discretionary. And it is interesting. I think that it definitely changes folks' calculation, if you are a partner. I think that that's what they want to sort of shore up their equity talents. Listen, they have a large roster of income partners, right, which is a very different situation, et cetera. And they're noted for, lateraling any one of a number of places. And I think that trying to shore up that equity talent that has access to, that are the rainmakers, they have the access to the client base and all that stuff is something that's really important going forward.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a great policy, but here we are. It certainly would make me think twice if I were moving to Kirkland.
I think that's true for potential lateral rainmakers, although the amount of money, as we said at the start of this segment, they are in fact the richest law firm by several measures higher. Yeah. It's not even close. I think that the amount of money they can throw around is the reason why, it doesn't really matter. And for the folks that are currently at Kirkland, they're already kind of pot committed, and the fact that they've changed this doesn't really change the number of years they've already kind of put in.
Yeah.
My question is, why would they want to leave? Like, what? Like, you're already at like a top tier firm. Like, they have locations other places. What's the appeal of going on?
I mean, I think that if you have that brass ring of equity partnership, your calculus changes a little bit, right? It's not just about the amount of money you can get in, but the sort of environment that you're working in. And again, with such a big firm, sometimes there can be conflicts, if you want to bring in new clients or if you want to do different sort of work, if you're doing something that might be, in conflict with some other giant firm client, that could be part of the reason why you want to leave. It could also just be the number of hours and environment, as people already have that on their resume for forever, are looking for somewhere where they like better.
Yeah, there's also situations with your deal. Put aside conflicts like legal conflicted out. There's conflicts with your colleagues too. Sure. You may have a good relationship with somebody, but there are people ahead of you in the feeding order who are going to take shares of that credit. If you move to a new firm, you now get the whole lion's share of that you're getting from that client. There's also different deals that people can operate under too. They get a base salary and then X% of how much they and their team bills. Another firm might say, look, we can give you more guaranteed, or we can give you the same guaranteed and a higher percentage of what your billing is, and that can be attractive too. And there's also internal responsibilities. You can be the head of the department if you move over to White and Case or something like that. And so there are other factors. It is a good point, though. Like, it seems like this is the top place to be, but you also are dealing with a lot of other top people. And so you might not be getting as much comp and accolades as you would if you became the bigger fish at a slightly different firm.